Final project for the class is music writing of 16 measures. To make it easy, just break it down into 4-measure phrases. So what we'll do first of all is we'll create 4 4-measure phrases that add up to our 16, and each of them is going to have a cadence at the end of it. It needs to follow in a weak strong cadence structure. So let's go ahead and just do that note flight. I'm going to go to note flight, and you can take your pre-existing Roman numerals that you already wrote and enter them in here. I'm going to hit new score, start from a blank score, and I'm just going to go ahead and find the plus button. It may not be visible, but here's what it looks like here. If not, go to measures in here, and you can hit this add measure. Otherwise, just right here, plus. I'm going to hit this until I get a bunch of measures in there. You can count it or not. I like to have them visually easy to see too in 4-bar increments, so I'm going to click on it and then hold down Shift, select 4 of them, and hit Enter. Click, Shift, hold down and click, and Enter. And if I do this each time, it creates line breaks every 4 measures. Now let's delete the measures we don't need. Click, Shift, click to the end, and hit the minus to delete. So now I'm going to type in the cadence for each of these 4-measure phrases by putting the second to last chord here in measure 3 and the last chord of the cadence in measure 4. I'll start out by a half cadence, click on the measure I want, and if I just hit the K button, it lets me type in chords or Roman numerals. So I'll type this in here. I'm going to type in 2, and then here I'm going to hit it again, and 5. It'll be a half cadence. Cool, so I have all the Roman numerals in there. Now, let's just create the chords for the Roman numerals. Since it's in the key of C, it's on a 4 chord, I need an F chord, F-A-C, so I can literally hit the keyboard key F, and it'll make it into an F. I can also make the duration here a whole note. That's what I'm going to do. If I click on this note, and then hold down Shift, I can type in the other notes of the chord and it'll add them on top. So I'm holding down Shift, and I hit the letter A and C. Now I can just add notes to the chord. If I hit the letter R on the keyboard, it'll repeat. So I don't really want this F chord. I want a 6th chord, which is an A chord. So I'll hit the arrow key and drag it up, the arrow, up, up. Now I'm going to hit R again, repeats the chord. What do I want? A 2 chord here. Since everything is selected in red, I can just hit the arrow down until I get to the 2 chord, which in the key of C would be a D chord. I'm going to hit R again to repeat, and hit the arrows until I get up to a G chord or 5 chord. Now I'm going to go to the top measure of each, and I'm going to take out 1 note from each of the measures that I choose that's just part of the chord. It's an F chord, so I'll take out a note I want from there. I'm going to click on the note and just make it a whole note for each of these. Oops. Now hit the R button to repeat. So now I've created all my notes for my melody by moving one of the notes in the chord up to the top staff. Now that we've made a melody using tones from the chords that we already created, let's put in some non-harmonic tones. It's best to do it like this after we've already created the regular melody. So let's go over to it. First, we're going to create as a passing tone. It's the easiest to create. And anytime you find a gap between notes in the melody from one note to the next, a leap or gap, something bigger than a second, you can just fill it in with a note in between. Probably the best way to do it is to find a gap of a third like this, because then there's just one note that can fit in between it. Here I could put a C in between this D and this B. So what I'm going to do to be able to fit it in there is to click on this note. I can hit the left bracket, or I can hit the half note, either way, to make it a smaller size. Because I want to have space to put two notes in, so I'll just make them two half notes. Hit R for repeat, and then I'm going to hit the down arrow, and now it goes D, C, B, and this is a passing tone here. Great. Now let's do the appoggiatura. An appoggiatura also works well with the leap. I can just take any place I see a leap already. It could be up or down, and I'll just pick this one going up. See, I'm going to jump from a D to a G. As you know, an appoggiatura jumps onto a non-harmonic tone and then steps back to a harmonic tone. Since I want the appoggiatura to eventually come back to this chord tone that I aimed at originally, I'm going to take this tone, make it half the length, and hit repeat. This is where I'm going to end up on the G I intended. Now I'm going to purposely go over here to the extra G I created and make it go one higher than I intended. So it jumps from a D, part of the chord, to a note one higher than I intended, something not part of the chord. And then after that, it steps down to the chord tone. So leap onto non-harmonic tone and then step down to the chord tone. It's easy to do this anywhere I find a leap. I just leap one bigger than I did, either up or down, and step to the chord tone. So now we have that. I can play these things here. Cool, works. Let's click on it. Let's label this thing. And let's say appoggiatura. Great. A suspension occurs when, after moving from your current harmony to the next harmony, one of the notes doesn't move to where it's supposed to. Instead, it just continues on as the same note it used to be. It lags behind from the previous chord and is then hovering over the new harmony or suspended over that. That means that the chord tone that lags behind here, say it's this D, if it was to continue to be a D when the next chord changes, it would have to also not be part of this next chord. Well, if I repeated this D, instead of going to a C here, it wouldn't be part of the C chord. So this would work for suspension. The way I try to make suspensions is I look for a chord change and then see if my melody note moves down by a step. If it moves down by a step, like this, when the chord changes, instead of letting it move down by a step to the note it's supposed to be, which will be correct, I just repeat this note from the previous chord. It's lagging behind or suspended over the new chord. So I just make this become a D, like the note it was previously, and make it into half the length, repeat it, and then I'm going to move it down. So this way, it was a D in the G, B, D chord, a chord tone. Then my chord changed to C, E, G, but this one note of the chord didn't change. This D persisted from the previous chord. It's hovering over it or suspended over it. And then finally, like all suspensions, it moves down by a step. Since this is from a C to a D more than an octave higher, it's a 9/8 suspension. Okay, so if I play that, notice also for perfect authentic cadence, my last note has to be a C because it's the root of the tonic chord on top and bottom. The suspension's now done. Let's go ahead and label that. I'm going to say what type of suspension it is, 9/8. Put it over there. Great. So let's look at the whole thing. We basically have the whole project here, except for we're missing the pop chord notation on top. Probably a title too. So let's go ahead and put in these pop chords. I'm going to hit K for chords and say F because it's an F major chord. You can hit the tab button too and it'll go to the next note. This is not an A chord, but an A capital letter and M for minor. This one's D, and for D minor. If you have inversions, you can type in the chord name. This is D minor. Hit the slash and say what's in the bottom. And everything's complete. Let's go ahead and give it a play. Not the most beautiful piece of music, but it works and it gets you started and hopefully gives you an idea about what are the foundational elements of music. Last thing we need to do after we have all this, make sure you save it, of course, and we're going to need to print it, and we're going to need to export it as a sound file. And so to do that, we're going to go to Score and Export. Gives you all these different formats. What we want is MP3. After the MP3 is created, send the file to me at my email. Bring a printed copy of this with you to class, and also make sure that I have the MP3 in my email by the deadline so we can play them for you in class. Ode to Cats, there it is.